Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and your local witch next door. And today I'm talking about the Queen of Swords. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. If you love the show, the best way to support it is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. For monthly hangouts, tarot Q&As, individual readings, and more, join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, check out the Let's Talk Tarot meetup group for the latest event postings. If you're not local to my area, you can join me for a virtual tarot card creation event on Friday, June 20th at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I'll give you a list of recommended supplies. We'll meet online, and I'll walk you through the process of creating your own cards. Get the date on your calendar now and be on the lookout for the sign-up page coming soon. If you're interested in a free PDF with a 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, and more. If you don't already know, I'm a sex and relationships therapist seeing clients virtually all over Washington State. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients. If you'd like to work with a therapist that doesn't judge and helps you learn how to deal with anxiety, chronic pain or illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex, head to my website and book a free consultation now. You can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull on each episode. All right, so we are in season 8 now, where I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords, going through one card each per episode. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you should check those out. Season 1, I went through Tarot Basics. Seasons 2 and 3, I went through the Major Arcana. Season 4, I talked to tarot and pop culture. Season 5, I went through 13 common tarot spreads. Season 6, I went through the Suit of Wands. Season 7, the Suit of Pentacles. And now we're here in Season 8, where I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords. If you want to hear an episode dedicated to an overview of the Suit of Swords, you can check out episode 37. And today we are talking about the Queen of Swords. If you have a tarot deck accessible, go ahead and take it out and find your Queen of Swords image. So some common images or symbols associated with the card are this like grace, silence, creativity, like watchfulness. I'm looking here at some of my cards. I have 3 different decks in front of me. In the Anima Mundi Tarot deck by Megan Weirer-London, we have an owl sitting on a branch. She is looking straight on at us. I'm going to have to look in the Tarot deck guidebook to see what kind of owl she is. But she's perched on this tree. Again, we see the branch, and then we see another part of the tree in the upper right part of the card. There's a sword across the top of the card. And yeah, she has this very watchful eye on us, like she knows what's up. So let's see here. So she's a Eurasian eagle owl. The Queen of Swords is composed, mature, and intelligent, and able to think clearly without emotion. When faced with an issue, use your head rather than your heart. And in the upright position, this card is all about independence, intelligence, rational thought, staying calm, grace, and perspective. All right, so again, as the swords are an air sign, which is all associated with like the mind, thoughts, and intellect. This makes sense for that card. In the Sacerdote Tarot deck by Stacia Burrington, the Queen of Swords is depicted as we see a woman, like in profile, we see her face and her hand, as she's sort of looking at the left side of the card. We have this sort of starry night image in the background where it's black, but then we also have like light blue and dark blue, and again, very like movement, but unlike the Knight of Swords, which is sort of chaotic, like jagged clouds, this one is very serene, like a lot of rounded or curved sort of movement in the background, almost like wisps of like smoke or something. And then we see like the top part of the sword, the double-edged part of it, as she's like looking onward at it again in profile. We don't see the whole sword. We don't see like the hilt, the part you hold on to, but we just see this sort of like really zoomed in on her. And it says the Queen of Swords is about intelligent, realistic, and honest. She's staring directly into the sword's edge, holding it in reverence. She holds honesty and truth above all. She's intelligent, witty, sharp, straightforward, and level-headed. She wants everything out in the open and does not shirk from the truth, even when uncomfortable. She says, I illustrated this queen unadorned. She's down to earth and can be quite funny. She's a realist and a problem solver. And actually, yeah, looking at all these images, we don't actually get any sort of like royalty imagery, at least in the ones that I'm looking at. In the other card I'm looking at is from the Therapist Who Tarot deck, prompts by Drea Bloom and illustrations by Rebecca Bloom. And I guess this person is just wearing a cape, so maybe that's like a slightly more like royalty depiction of it. But yeah, we see her. She's in these very, again, sort of like nice colors, like a royal blue and the cape. You know, it's kind of like modeled, so it has different colors on it. She's maybe wearing red, like a dress or something underneath the cape. We see the sword sort of that maybe she's holding onto across her from the front, but it's not, right, it's not like pointed at anyone. It's very like casual. It's a very much a focus of the card, but we're not in battle right now. We see some purple in the background, and then we see like a yellow sun. So it's a very like, I don't know, warm, fuzzy sort of feeling of the card. And the word associated with this card on this one is creativity. And the prompts on the back say, what are you trying to avoid? What are you craving? And how have you been coping with stress? So again, this is very like in tune, right? Like you have to be in tune to know what you're craving, right? The sort of stress part, what we're avoiding. And again, it's very sort of like intentional. It's a lot of the vibe, I guess, I get from this card. In the Library of Esoterica Tarot book by Toshin, they talk about that the Queen is all about gaining perspective, seeing clearly. The Queen of Swords demands astute, straightforward action. This card also encourages direct, unpretentious communication. So again, we have that like, right, sometimes considered maybe blunt aspect, right? Again, if you think of a sword, right, it can be very cutting, it can be very sharp in that sense, right? The other depiction was witty about the queen, but also it's just very, like, it's clear. It's very clear cut. It's like, okay, this is how it is, right? This is what I see. This is the truth. This is the honesty. Like, this is where we're at. And just being very, like, very clarifying in that way. So, in the Tarot and Astrology book by Karine Kenner, the Queen of Swords here is talked about as associated with Libra, and it says the decisiveness of cardinal air. So what do you get when you mix the emotional world of water with the intellectual realm of air? Meet the Queen of Swords, who uses both her head and her heart to make balanced decisions. Each one of the tarot's queens combines the element of water with the corresponding element of her own suit. So as a result, the Queen of Swords embodies a unique blend of logic and reason with understanding and feeling. The Queen of Swords, as a ruler of the intellect, is a critical thinker. She's a clever conversationalist with a keen intelligence and an occasionally sharp tongue. She knows that words have precise meanings, and she understands subtext too. She can cut through extraneous information and get right to the point of any discussion or debate. She also knows that words are often a poor representative of deep-seated feelings and emotions, so she can read between the lines of any argument or dispute. She's clear-headed and compassionate. She's firm but fair. In fact, according to tarot tradition, the Queen of Swords is well acquainted with sorrow and heartbreak. She's actually believed to be a widow or a divorcee who has learned from her loss and developed an uncanny ability to empathize and draw accurate conclusions about other people and situations. The Queen of Swords represents the cardinal air sign of Libra. She's a natural-born leader, willing and able to hear both sides of any story. She can play the role of peacemaker, mediator, or judge. Like her major arcana counterpart, the goddess of justice, she makes clear and fair decisions based on the facts, and like Libra's ruling planet Venus, she's attuned and attracted to other people. The Queen of Swords rules the third decan of Virgo and the first and second decans of Libra. In a natural horoscope, her primary domain is the seventh house of partners and relationships. Right, so she's also very relational, right? She's attuned, she is seen between the lines. Not everything has to be described in words, right? Which again would be the normal way of the swords, that airy element, the intellect, the getting caught in the mind, right? Sometimes asking people to only communicate through words, whereas there's a lot that can be communicated through body language. And right, she recognizes that. That's what they're sort of talking about here. And she has that wateriness to her of the queen, as they're talking about with the court cards, that just allows her to also hold the emotions, like as well as the sort of intellect part of it. So in the Fearless Tarot book by Elliot Adam, they talk about that the Queen of Swords is all about personal authority. She symbolizes bringing order to chaos through clarity and boundaries. She's also an archetype that does not apologize for her right to have a place at the table. We love that. The Queen of Swords stands up to bullies and societal pressures. She questions the legitimacy of structures and rules that do not make logical sense. She keeps an eagle eye on maintaining her strength, integrity, and personal authority. Are you uncomfortable with setting up boundaries with others because you might look mean? Is your career path in harmony with your authentic self? Is it difficult for you to stand up to the pressures of what others think you should be or do? Says the Queen of Swords gets a lot of bad press. This is because she's not a docile, submissive, or objectified woman. She is too powerful to be minimized by mindless societal rules and conventions. She uses her sword to cut through the hypocrisy of others' assumptions concerning how she should act and what she should be. She knows that if she bows down to the demands of what others want her to be, she's selling herself short. She places strong boundaries because that is how people and organizations become healthy and grow. She's a master of transforming the energy from victimhood to being victorious. Says, look at her butterfly crown. She commands respect because she respects herself first. The queen's cloak is decorated with clouds. She protects herself with her mind. The head of the sylph on the throne represents that this queen lives in a world of ideas. However, even she will eventually have to contend with the awareness that occurs below her neck. One solitary bird can be seen flying above the queen. She often prefers to go it alone, and yet the frown on her face shows what prolonged isolation can do to our mood. It says, even our modern society still seems to have problems with women exhibiting intellectual leadership. Early on, we're often taught that women should be likable and selfless rather than strong, powerful, or ambitious. Women who embody the energy of the Queen of Swords are sometimes ostracized, despised, and ridiculed for no other reason than, I just think she's a bitch. No wonder this queen isolates herself. However, some of the best rulers history ever produced were strong women, like Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt, Queen Elizabeth I of England, and Empress Catherine the Great of Russia. It says, whether you're male or female, the Queen of Swords appears to reacquaint you with your personal authority, strength, and power. You may also need to be self-disciplined or create some much-needed boundaries. Don't worry about being liked as much as being honest with yourself. Speak up and solve present issues and problems. You are strong and capable. Do not apologize for your strength, power, or authentic self. You own it. The Queen of Swords can also represent a person who is direct, capable, or extremely intelligent. She may not exude the softer qualities of other queens. However, she's offering you practical counsel. Listen to her. Queens can be mature individuals of any gender who wield strong feminine power. And lastly, in the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dorr, they talk about that, let's see, they're talking about Baba Yaga. So it says, in a much-loved Russian fairy tale, a young girl named Belisa is sent by her wicked stepmother and stepsisters to the deep forest home of a child-eating witch, Baba Yaga, to fetch fire. Vasilisa's stepmother and stepsisters are hoping she'll die fulfilling the task. But the young girl brings a magic doll that her birth mother had given her before she passed away, and the doll aids her. Baba Yaga gives Vasilisa a number of chores, yet some seemingly impossible. Wash my clothes, clean my house and yard, separate these molding corn kernels from the good ones. And as Valisa sleeps, the doll does it all. Impressed, the witch then orders Vasilisa to parse poppy seeds from a mound of dirt and divide them into two piles. And if you've ever seen poppy seeds as a gardener, they are tiny. They're one of the smallest seeds I've ever encountered. And divide them into two piles, and once again, as Vasilisa dozes, the doll does the job. With that, Baba Yaga grants Vasilisa fire and sends her home to her stepfamily. The story ends abruptly, as is often the case in old tales, when the fire burns the wicked stepmother and stepsisters to ash. Vasilisa, of course, is spared. The task of sifting poppy seeds from dirt is obviously one having to do with discernment. We are separating this from that, as Jungian analyst Clarissa Pinkola Estes says in her retelling of the tale in the iconic Women Who Run with the Wolves book. It's about a high degree of how with a sword, knife skills in other words, because the intellect's double edge is what helps parse out what's good or bad, this or that, black or white. As we've seen throughout the sword suit, this capacity can cause problems for us. But the queen is exalted. She embodies the ability to use her blade for the highest good. In the story, the fact that all the difficult tasks are completed while Vasilisa is asleep gives a sense that the conscious mind is being overridden in favor of a deeper, darker knowing, something that emerges from the rich soil of the unconscious when proper space is made to receive it. No amount of intellectual problem solving was going to keep Vasilisa alive if she couldn't separate the seeds from the dirt pile, but some other intuitive part of her knew exactly what to do. There's a suggestion here that although the sword is naturally literal, does great with explicit tasks, there is more to using it properly than what exists at the surface. To know the physical difference between a seed and a piece of dirt would not have been sufficient. Something deeper was needed to complete the task of parsing out what's life-giving. Many times in life are like this. Facts alone are not sufficient to make a choice. So what is the deeper knowing that's required? She says, I think the clouds near the queen's feet and her receptive posture, hand outstretched as if in welcome, contain some clues. Some call the Queen of Swords cold or unfeeling, but I think more see the image, feel it, and know otherwise. The clouds disclose the secret of a deep and at times tumultuous inner life. They suggest that the cool exterior and capacity to wield the blade wisely and precisely at the right moments was hard won. I personally think this queen passed many times through witches' quarters and the forest full of dangerous tasks and trials. Having been through that, the terror, the hopelessness, the heartbreak, the grief, and the relief too, she came out the other side with a treasure. Like Vasilisa traipsing through the woods to return home with fire. The magic doll was given to Vasilisa by her mother. I think that means that the doll's powers and the queen's derive from experience, age, and the heartbreaks and healing inherent in the passage of time. The Queen of Swords carries the energy of an elder. She is a reminder that we gather secrets as we go, and that through the things we experience, we develop the capacity to separate felt data into knowledge that will aid us in making wise choices for ourselves. We learn to sift the poppy seeds from the dirt and to use them for nourishment when it feels right. All right, so let's dive in and see what the cards have to say today on this topic. All right, and I'm pulling from the Citadel, a Fantasy Oracle by Fen Inkwright. Do one more quick shuffle, and we'll see what comes out. All right. Interesting. So I pulled this one the other day, but I think I pulled it upright. So this is the Witch, and it's about experimentation and rebellion again, and I did pull it in reverse. All right, so let's see. So I guess we still need to hear this message. If it's coming up again. Okay, so it says reversed. It's tempting to buck convention by dismissing it entirely, but most processes become well established because they actually work. When you're busy forging your own path, don't completely forget about the paths that have been laid before. You can borrow inspiration without being trapped by the rigidity of institution. Borrow, change, and adapt as needed. I like that. So, right, it's telling us, yes, we can, right, maybe buck convention in the aspect, right, of maybe slowing down in our lives, taking a siesta or a nap time in the afternoon, right, being very intentional, and, right, that sometimes things are like there are aspects of culture that are helpful, or of rituals, or of things that people, right, that are traditional because people have been doing them for so long. And sometimes that means it doesn't work. So this is telling us, right, that maybe don't throw everything out, right? You don't have to do that, but maybe borrow some inspiration, right, from things. You can make your own way with it, right? With inspiration, you can make your own, again, like ritual or practice or whatever it is, but you don't have to be trapped by, right, things from the institution or from sort of like the maybe dominant culture. Borrow, change, and adapt as needed, right? We don't have to recreate the wheel always, right? It can be helpful if you're the kind of person to forge your own path, which I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast are, if you're into tarot. But that, right, sometimes that can be a very lonely road. It can be a very challenging road. Again, if you literally think about if you have to forge your own path, like through a forest, it's going to be a lot of work. You're going to have to cut down a lot of trees. You're going to have to take down a lot of brush. You're going to be jumping over things and potentially getting hurt or scraped or scratched, right? It's going to be challenging. So this is telling us, right, that I guess just like in the Baba Yaga story, right, like it's not that she had to figure out how to sift the poppy seeds from the dirt. She had this sort of subconscious or intuition part of her, right, embodied in the doll that could do it for her. Like you don't actually have to like not do it entirely. She just figured out sort of like a workaround in that way. And so, and through like the experience, it sounds like of her mother, of other like women that came before her. So I think of this with like medical issue. I don't know. I get migraines, and so like talking to other people that have migraines, like in my experience, mostly women, and just being able to talk about and like normalize things is very helpful, right? And like sharing information, finding community, even in those like very challenging aspects of life, like chronic illness, or I was recently in conversations with people about like perimenopause and menopause, right? Like knowing what is sort of coming in the next chapters of your life and getting tips and, right, not just sharing horror stories necessarily, but also like, right, equipping yourself with knowledge as you go forward can be very helpful. And it can help you decide, right, like, okay, which sort of, again, path do I want to take? Do I go partially down this path and then I'm going to, right, turn off into the woods and go my own way? But then if I just try to do it all myself, like it's going to take a long time and a lot of energy. And that's not always the best way to do things, even for yourself, right? All right, so links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday to Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.